I go back right into it. Alter Rebbe, Shulchan Aruch, Shabbos 271, subsection 19. Even though you already said Vayechulu, in other words, you said the part Yom Hashishi Vayechulu Hashemayim, right? And it was the sixth day, and he finished the heavens and the earth and all of their legions, etc. So even though you say this in Shul, as we mentioned before, that this is actually you can actually be with this, the Torah obligation of Zechiras Shabbos, of mentioning Shabbos, of remembering Shabbos. So you still have to say it again when you come back home, and before you make Kiddush, you start Yom Hashishi Vayechulu Hashemayim. In order to fulfill the obligation of his sons and his grandchildren, or Bnei Beis could also just mean people of the household. Haktanim, the small ones, that did not say it yet, being that they were not in shul. And after that, you make the bracha of Bari Pri Hagafen, and then you make the Kiddush bracha, Asher Kiddishanu, V'ratzabanu, etc., Mekadosh Shabbos. V'im shachach lo'amri kedim Kiddush, Eimri b'seicha su'uda ala case. If you did not say it during Kiddush, you forgot to say Vayechulu, you would go back and say it again during the Su'uda. Interestingly, not only would you go back and say it during the Su'uda, you would say it on, you would actually do it on a cup, on a cup of wine. And it's good to stand during the saying of Vayechulu, like it says in 268. But during the time of the bracha of Kiddush, it's better to sit down, like it says in 296. So he says you would stand by Vayechulu and sit by the bracha that's after Hagafen. In these countries, already the minhag has spread to sit even during the time of Vayechulu. Being that you already said it in shul standing up, so lav dafka, we so what do you call it, particular to stand during saying it at the time that in the house that he is fulfilling the obligation of his children and the people in the house. Mikol Makim, still when you start Kiddush and you should say when you say Yom Hashishi Vayechulu Hashemayim, you should stand up a little bit. Shenirmaz Hashem b'Rashi Tevis, because Hashem's holy name Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shem Havaya, is, if you look at the first letters of Yom Hashishi Vayechulu Hashemayim, is the Shem Havaya. So therefore, you would stand a little bit at that point. And when you start, it's good to put your eyes on the candles. Doesn't mean literally take your eyeballs and stick them on the candles, but meaning look at the candles. Ki base pa'amim neir eile tafkuf, because 2 times neir is 2 times candle. The candle is neir.
To the eyes.
Yeah.
One eye, so twice. I'm saying that's what it is. That's why neir. So you look at the.
Yeah. Well, I thought it's because it's neiris.
Oh, 2 lights. Oh, that's probably it. That's probably it. You're probably right.
I'm not sure. We'll wait for the note.
Nice.
Maybe he'll tell us. So it comes out to 500.
Yeah, the note says two Shabbos lights. You're right.
All right. So Ner is 250 and 250, and it's 500, which is a healing to Pisia Gasa. I think that's some kind of a eye thingy.
No. Gasa is wide. Pisia is strides. Taking long steps.
Yeah. When you walk a long thing, then because of that, if you take steps that are too long, you lose a 500th of your sight, and therefore the 500th here. It completes
Brachas
the
of
500.
Shabbos.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Can you tell us that it takes 1/500th of the sight of a person? And since you don't want only 499 out of 500 of your sight, right? You don't want to lose 1/20th% of your sight. Therefore, because you didn't have patience and you took giant steps, or you were avoiding the lava, on the sidewalk. So anyway, so therefore you should look at the candles. And by the way, interestingly, this is something that we actually do, because we look at the candles. But at the time of Kiddush, he should not be looking at the candles. He should look at it before the part of the kid, before Yom HaShishi, or by the beginning of Yom HaShishi. But at the time that he's making the bracha of Kiddush, he should be careful to be looking at the cup, like we said before, that he shouldn't remove his brain from the cup.
Yeah. And like we pointed out in the last one, that the cup, not the wine.
Right.
It's about looking at the cup. Okay.
Okay.
So let's run through a couple of nights. So yeah, of course it says you should repeat, even though you said Vayichulu and Shul, repeat it and hold a cup of wine. Of course, if you're making Kiddush over Challah, you don't need to hold a cup of wine while saying the Vayichulu. So I'm saying, like, even if you're making a cup of Challah, if you're making Kiddush over Challah for some other reason,
right,
and you have wine in the house, like you don't go and hold a cup of wine, but it's okay. And of course, we say the Bayir Priya Gafen, and he adds in, of course, it's the Babch Minute to say Sabri Maranan before saying Bracha Bayir Priya Gafen. It says in Alter Rebbe Siddur, and we see the Bracha of Kiddush. Now in Siman 188 Sif 11, it says the Bracha of Kiddush begins Barachata Hashem, Barachata, even though generally it's recited in direct sequence to the Bracha over wine. We just said Barachata, saying another Barachata, because there are times when there's no need to say a bracha over wine. For example, when one is dining at a meal that he began while it was still day. Therefore, Kiddush should always begin with a bracha, barachata, so as not to make a distinction between the recitation of the same bracha on different occasions. So now, so then it's desirable to stand.
I got a quick question. You mean to tell me if you say hamotzi for during the weekday, and then you decide to have wine during that meal, you don't have to.
No, we're not talking about weekdays here. Only Shabbos we're talking about here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're talking about making Kiddush.
And then you have to say Vayichulu. If you miss Vayichulu, you have to say it after. The question is, do you have to say it afterwards on a cup of wine or not? So usually, if you already made Kiddush on wine, you would pour another cup of wine and then say Vayichulu over that over the wine that you already made a bracha on. On the other hand, if you made it on bread, you would not.
So it's better to say Vayichulu paragraph standing, as we say in Ches, and it's because you're saying this passage is comparable to giving testimony, which testimony is to be delivered standing. There are those though that want to sit B'tafka, and that's source 296. Alter Rebbe states that Torah scholars should not eat or drink while standing. It's not appropriate for a Talmid Chacham to be eating or drinking while standing. Nevertheless, Havdalah is recited while standing out of respect for the Shabbos king who is departing. Despite this rule, it is Lubavitch's custom to stand while saying Kiddush also, says Sefer HaMenhagim, but then of course you sit down before drinking the wine. The whole thing of Yom HaShishi is Vayichulu, and that's why the words Yom HaShishi are included in the Kiddush, because really those two words Yom HaShishi are from the last pasuk. So why would I have to do? Why wouldn't we just start Vayichulu Hashemayim? Like in davening, we say the paragraph Vayichulu. We start with the word Vayichulu. We don't start with Yom HaShishi. But when we say the Kiddush, we start with the word Yom HaShishi, so that way it says the whole Shem Havaya, Yom HaShishi, Vayichulu, Hashemayim.
Right.
Yeah, like we said, it's Neiros, the 500, because of the two lights of Shabbos candles. And the whole thing went 500, it's from Brachas and Shabbos, okay. And yeah, all right, Chaf.
I just want to clarify the reason that the connection to Vayichulu being testimony to standing is that witnesses in court, a witness in court has to stand.
Great.
Okay. Chaf. Somebody who does not have wine for the kiddush of night or for the day. He only has one. He has either for the night or for the day. And if they will split them into two cups, they will not be
full.
Yeah, they will not be full.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then what do you? So they won't be full cups. Meaning, oh yeah, feel in case there any mole, or even if this cup is not full, but if he's right, if he splits it into two, he won't have two reviusin.
Yeah,
of course, like the Mishnah Berurah explains, it's not just revius.
What's all that background noise? You hear getting background noise?
I mean, I'm outside. What kind of background noise?
Like people talking. Not now. You know what? It's an echo on my phone some reason. How? Must be.
I don't think it's yours.
I don't know. I mean, I'm on my front porch. There's no one really around.
Okay. I don't hear it now.
No, it might be some. I think it's some kind of like electronic interference or something.
Did you hear what you were talking?
I heard it, but it wasn't.
Okay, so did I.
We picking up a radio signal from North Korea.
Something. Well, no, it wasn't from North Korea. They were unless it was an English class in North Korea, perhaps.
Could be.
Maybe it's that. Okay. So, anyways, or for example, if this cup, right? Let's say you have a cup and it's not full, but you don't have two revius in it. You can then make two different kiddushes on. He should put it all in one cup. The kaddish olav by laila, and he should make kiddush on it at night. Right, like we said before, the kiddush of night is more important than the kiddush of day. And now, so that he does now, let's say we want to try to stretch it so that it should last for the day also. Maybe I can get it to last for the day, being that I don't have two full revius. So he should put the whole thing in one cup and make kiddush on it on the night.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm getting that.
Yeah, see, now I hear it again.
So did I.
Anyway,
I didn't hear any voices, people talking.
Interesting. I think it's some kind of electron. I don't know what it is. It could be that like somebody else talking on a ham radio is maybe is coming in on a Bluetooth device or on a radio wave or something. Not sure.
It's not an echo. It's not an echo of us.
Doesn't sound like it. No, because we weren't talking when it happened. Anyway. Okay. And so what do? You put it in a cup, you make kiddush on it for the night, and then, but here's the problem: if you're going to taste from it now, if you're going to taste from it, then it's pugum, like you said before, and now you won't be able to make kiddush on it in the day. So in order, so if he drinks from all of it now, it's going to be pugum. So instead, what do? He should pour a little bit from. Pour a little bit into another cup or another keli or whatever it is, another vessel. And he should be careful that in the cup that he's pouring from, the one that he made kiddush on, should remain a revius, so that he's tasting from the revius, so that when he's doing his mali lugmav, right, he's doing his full cheek, he's doing it from a revius. Because the cup of blessing is not less than a revius. Then he takes from the second cup that he did not drink from, that he poured a little bit into, right? and he pours it back in so that he now fixes it from being pogum, because the way you fix something from being pogum is you pour wine into it. That means from being blemished. Blemish means that somebody drank from it. So you pour a little bit of new wine into it that hasn't been drunken from. So that's why first, before you make the kiddush and making sure to leave a revius, you pour a little bit out into another cup, and then you drink from your kiddush cup. Which this goes according to the second shita in the Mechaber. The first shita was you the first shita was you poured into the revius into another cup and then drink from the second cup. But what he brought up was that you're supposed to drink from the cup that you make kiddush on, and therefore even I believe Mishnah Berurah also leans to the same thing that Alter Rebbe here is saying, is that you rather pour it in the second cup then a little bit, but then drink from the first cup, which still contains the revius. Like it explains in 182, and like this you fix it from being blemished because you poured a little bit back in from what you poured after the other cup that you did not drink from that cup. If this cup is already now not full, meaning that if you split it into two cups, there won't be a full revius in each one. You should pour out a little bit before kiddush. I guess before he was saying that you pour out. Is this the same situation? Why is this different? I see. Meaning, if you don't have enough that once you spill that you're gonna be, because you have to have the revius remaining. But then what doesn't make a difference in what you spill it though?
Wait, what is your...
I'm trying to figure out how this one is different.
Meaning, so now
Because before he also didn't have two complete revius in.
Yeah.
So what's the difference that case in this case?
I think maybe that case was a full cup though. Because remember, there's two components. You need a revius and it needs to be a full cup.
Got it. Right. So you see how
this one, that's what we said. But even now, it's not even before you spilled
I see
out.
what it is. Right. I see what it is. He's actually looks like he's going back to the case of the parentheses in the above one. So in this case, it's already not full, and if you split it into two, you will not have a revius in each one. So he should spill a little bit out before kiddush, and after he tastes it, then he pours it back in. Meaning the difference here being that he pours it out before kiddush rather than after kiddush. I guess because benkach you don't have a kaishalin. You anyways don't have a full cup. So in that case, you're forced to do it that way because you want to remain with a full cup. But if you anyways don't have a full cup, then you pour it out before even making kiddush. The amount that you're going to pour out to keep for to complete your pagima. And then after he drinks, then he returns it. And he should not pour into it after kiddush, but before tasting, like we did in the first case. Why? Because it is a how do you say bizayin, like
on the second
like a waste it's like an embarrassment sort of.
Yeah, I mean here it just is a purposeless interruption.
Yeah, but I mean it means more. It means like you're
More of an
being
embarrassment.
offensive
Yeah,
to the
that's-
bracha, kind of more. That's
that's
okay.
what I would...
Yeah, bizayin is like more like a waste. A waste.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong word.
It's like a waste, no? Like bizayin isrit.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong. This demeans the blessing.
Yeah.
It's
Fine,
demeaning.
the means. We'll go with that. That works.
What's the
And also, why should he stop between the bracha and his tasting for no reason? If he has a reason he has to do that, so fine. So you don't have a choice. But in this case, when it's not necessary, when he anyway doesn't have a full cup, so by pouring it off the little bit before Kiddush, it's not hurting anything. In other words, you already don't have a full cup anyway, so it's not like you're now making your cup of Kiddush not full. So therefore, why do it before Kiddush rather than in between? Because you shouldn't interrupt between the bracha and the tasting when you do not have to. Because you don't have a full cup. Now, what happens if you have an exact revius of wine that's not it's not water poured into it, meaning it's not diluted with anything, meaning of actual wine. Or even he has a little bit more than that, but it's still not like two proper revius. And when he drinks, being that you have to drink malay lugmo, so you have to drink a shear. You can't just take a little tiny. You're supposed to drink an appropriate amount. And by the time he's done drinking the appropriate amount at night, he will be missing already a lot. He's gonna now fall short of how much he needs for tomorrow. So yimzegenu lemachar b'mayim. So you should drink the amount he needs, and then the part that's remaining, he should fill with water. Until he has enough for revius. He should add water. And this is obviously that it remains fitting for drinking with this dilution. That you'll still be able to make the bracha on it. Because if not, then you just made water out of it. Like it says in 204. Okay, Nate.
Okay. So yeah, just stam the whole thing of at the beginning when the Alter Rebbe says, it divided into two cups, there'll be lesser revius. It happens to bring up that it says the measurement is equal to 86 cc, which is about slightly less than 3 ounces. Just bear that in mind. Go below 3. If you dip below 3, then it's less than obvious. And as we mentioned before, the cup, right? Like we said, like I pointed out before, about how the cup has to be full, and like the Alter Rebbe says that it at least has to have a revius. So that's why these two components of full and revius. But now he's focusing more on the revius point. Okay. Okay, so then he said, should not pour off some after Kiddush before drinking because it's demeaning the bracha. Like I made a bracha over this and now I'm pouring some off. So it says in Reish Tzadik Vav. So in that source, the Alter Rebbe says, before saying the bracha, one should fill the cup of Havdalah to overflowing as a symbol of blessing. Should not pour off the wine before drinking because to do so would cast aspersion on the cup of blessings. So even more than demeaning, casts aspersion. Fancier word of saying bizayin.
Yeah.
But what are you communicating right now?
I mean, it's one thing.
But I don't want to drink this wine.
It's another thing to cast aspersion on somebody. That's
even
a whole different level.
It's even more worse than bizayin. You're saying?
Yeah, casting aspersion on me.
So and then so we'll see later. The Alter Rebbe says he'll avoid a purposeless interruption. The Alter Rebbe is going to address that more in Kuf Tzadik. So we're going to get into that later. So, excuse me. Exact revius of undiluted wine that is not blended with water. So again, the wines in the Talmudic era, the wines were so strong, it would have to be blended with water so that they would be palatable. Excuse me.
Meaning it was like a concentrate almost.
It was a very strong, concentrated, tough wine. I guess they didn't aerate that much, or maybe the amount. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe they just the grapes they had available were very high sugar content, so they were super, high alcohol. I'm not sure. The yeasts available, etc.
Right, almost like we do with some with like some whiskeys.
I mean, today's day and age, you think about
whiskeys that are very high alcohol that are like 53 or something like that, and you're actually supposed to open it with ice or water.
Oh yeah, no, but
Because
halal drinking whiskey is the whole way with ice and with water. No, what I was saying is, I think it's comparable to, like, you think about breads. Today's day and age, you have to know wine is made like similar to today's breads, where people add the yeast. You add the yeast, it's so controlled. But you talk about like how sourdough used to be made, and breads of different countries tasted differently because of what was available in the water and in the air, and it caused things to rise differently, and so the amount of yeast or whatever
the whole process was, in other words.
So so
first
eats
of all,
the sugars.
There wasn't they didn't go to the Pennsylvania State Store and find Baitanura wines there, and
right. No, what I'm saying is even in the production,
it was made
I'm not just saying
locally.
Right, I don't mean to just
Made very
but
differently.
I'm saying even in the process of making it, there's the way we have the yeast that we can control the alcohol content and how strong and how sugary and how
over then they had a starter
Then-
probably, and it was bacteria, and each place varied even from town to town.
not necessarily even having a starter. I'm saying it's very shaykh. They were relying completely on the natural sugars that are in the grape, but the amount of time that I have to wait for it to even just to turn to alcohol, to turn to wine, to ferment. By that time, the yeast is already working too fast, and it would just be this super strong wine. So to be able to drink it without people dropping dead,
or at least dropping over super drunk or whatever.
So they'd have to dilute it.
Yeah. Interesting. So that was a standard thing. Whereas interestingly now, being that our wines are already, if you bought a bottle of wine and you had to dilute it for it to be palatable, we would hope you didn't pay more than $2-3 for it these days. So when we're diluting something, it's for the reason that he brings here, because we're a little short. That's the reason we would add some.
Right.
As opposed to
that's Baruch Hashem, it's already palatable.
Yeah.
All right, Chav Aleph.
Yeah, and it should be noted, like you mentioned before, that in a different time we were talking more about what the shear of a Ravius is, and there's a very wide gap. In cases like this, these are the times to go by the lower
minimum.
Because you need to make kiddush and you need to be able to save for the next day, and so this would be a good time to go by the lower shear. Chaf, that's all of them.
Yeah, that's all.
Chaf Aleph. The calls that all the above that we said about stretching about these various methods of trying to stretch the cup so that you can make kiddush both at night and again by day. And of course, just a reminder, what we said earlier in the sif is that if the bottom line is you only have the one cup and it's not, and it's simply not going to be enough for the night and the day, then the kiddush of night would proceed. So you would make the kiddush of night only, and then make the kiddush of the kiddush of the day on bread. But all of the above, when you're trying to stretch the cup, this is when you have another cup of wine that you've set aside for Havdalah. She'im loikein, that if not so, or alternatively something else that you can make Havdalah on. She'im loikein, or if not, because if not so, mutu shanichenu lahavdalah v'kadosh alapas. So better to put it aside for Havdalah and make kiddush on bread. Mimashi kaddish alav, rather than make kiddush on wine, even though it's true that you're making a more preferential kiddush because you're making it on wine. But then in the meantime, even though bread is not as good to make kiddush on as wine, but the fact is you'll be yay to the kiddush, and then you'll have wine to make havdalah on. Whereas if you use it now for kiddush and you won't have on what to make havdalah, now you got a problem, she'in mavdilin al pas, because you cannot make havdalah on bread. However, note that if you have other drinks, right, in a place where such a drink is considered an important drink. Chamar Medina means like a drink of the country. It means like a national drink. So, for example, in Russia, you have a nice cup of vodka that is Chamar. That's Chamar Medina, even for babies in Russia. So, what would you do? So you would then you would make since you can make the Havdalah on that, right? So you have beer, let's say, right? And beer is a Chamar Medina. Well, it's in most places anyway.
He says where it is, but in a place where beer is a Chamar Medina.
Yeah, is a Chamar Medina. Right. So then you would not leave the wine for Havdalah. Why? Because you have what to make Havdalah on. So therefore, since you're not going to lose out Havdalah, then make the Kiddush in the preferential way. And even the Kiddush of the day precedes Havdalah. When you're able to make Havdalah on beer that is the what do you call it, national wine, the wine of a country.
Wine of the region.
Yeah, lefi when it's a regional, all right, a regional. What do you call it? Maybe that's where it comes from. Lefi shebekiddush afilu shel yomish imikachim ala shecher, because some say that even on kiddush of the day, you should not make kiddush on beer. Afal pisha Chamar Medina, even though it is a regional the wine of a region. Kameshis bar be'erev, like it explains in 272. Over Havdalah, but Havdalah, everybody agrees that you can make Havdalah on beer that is Chamar Medina.
I just want to point out, I don't know if you remember a few classes ago, I mentioned how even if it's Simchas Torah, Purim, or whatever, when people are pushing make Kiddush Amashke, this is the Halachik reason why.
Well, here he's talking about the beer, so
no, I understand, but I'm saying this is why I do not.
Right.
I make it on Hagafen because of this. There is a Yeshemrim that Chamar Medina should not be used.
Right, for that.
Can't be making Kiddush Chamar Medina. So no, make Kiddush on Hagafen. Okay, after I'll have Chamar Medina, I'll have some L'chaim after. You want to say L'chaim, we'll say L'chaim. But there's a Yeshem that no, Kiddush has to be made on Hagafen. Or Hamaitzi, but that you can't be using Chamar Medina to make Kiddush. So this is why I do that.
Lav dafka do I always follow that minhag.
Right. I'm just saying, it's not, it is a Yeshem Rim. And let's put it this way: there's no notes on that line for some mysterious reason.
Yeah, you know why? It's like when the press secretary comes right before that. Before that, they tell the press secretary, if this comes up, don't talk about it. If this comes up, don't talk about it. If that comes up, we're not going there.
Stay away from these questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of these, I guess.
All right. So
a person in his house, but in the shul, Havdalah kedemis lekiddush. Havdalah comes first. It's more important to leave the wine for Havdalah than to make kiddush on it. Why? Because in kiddush in the shul, nobody is fulfilling their obligation. And some argue and how do you say they like
protest,
yeah. This kiddush. Kemation is bar b'siman rasat, like it says in 2:6d 9. Aval Havdalah mitzvah divrei akel haitzi mishin leyayin, but Havdalah it's a mitzvah according to everybody to fulfill the obligation of all those who do not have wine, like it's explained in Reish Tzadik Hey, like it's explained in 295.
So to the nights. So if they're not going to have another cup of wine for Havdalah, so the person has at least 3 reviusin of wine. So at least enough to have a revius of wine for each bracha after drinking some. If he has enough for only 2 revius, he should use one for Kiddush at night and one for Havdalah and say Kiddush during the day over bread. We said before, just to review that. Now, we said nevertheless about Chamar Medina. So in Kuf Pei Beis.
I thought we just said Afilu Kiddush. Are you talking if he doesn't have Chamar Medina?
All right, I went back to the beginning. Fine. If he doesn't have Chamar Medina.
Okay.
Then the Alter Rebbe says, okay, but if he has Chamar Medina, so they're making a Chamar Medina. Okay, so in Kuf Pei Beis, The Alter Rebbe defines this term as a beverage. What's Chamar Medina, this wine of the region? It's a beverage used by the majority of people in a locale as the primary beverage for one's meal, which the way I understood it and have heard it defined, what you mean primary beverage, we mean this is a drink that could be drunk on its own, not just something that accompanies your food.
Right.
Which is why when with the discussion of is soda Chamar Medina or whatever, no, it's not. It's not really in most places. It's not really a drink on its own. It's with alongside your meal. But in some places it is, and in those places it could be argued that yes, in those places.
Right.
But this is one of those areas where mamish, you got to go with what's going on in your place, in your space. The fact is, all over America, there's still bars. There's still the place of, you walk in and you order a beer. You walk in, you order a coffee. You walk in, you order a tea. It's not, a drink on the side. So that's why those things are still pretty universally
right. And even opposite. Usually, if somebody's going to a Starbucks,
right,
and if they're going to be getting ways to have the other. Obviously, it doesn't work for Jews, but they have other little
right snacks, right.
It's usually the opposite. They're probably getting the mezainis to accompany the coffee rather than vice versa.
I'm getting the biscotti just to dip. I get the donut because I need something to dip in my coffee.
It's an accompaniment to the coffee, right? And in a bar, the same thing would be like
right. They have snacks,
whatever it is. They have pretzels.
Chips
They bring out. This is all. Even a fancy place with nachos, but it's an accompaniment to the beer.
They used to have things like a soda fountain, but even then, I think the soda fountain, they weren't stores on their own. It was something that was located in a store. But one thing I brought up in another class, which actually I'd like to explore with another Rav more, are Slurpees, because they are drunk as a drink on their own. It's its own thing,
right?
So I think it could be an interesting region of being considered Chamar Medina. It's not quite fancy though, and here. So however, as the note continues, as the note continues, it must, however, be a prestigious beverage that in that region is accorded the same degree of importance universally accorded to wine. So the exact definition is not just it has to be some, I guess, a little. I think there's an element of classiness to it, but we'll see that in Kupe base. Get up to that.
So only in West Virginia you can make Havdalah on a Slurpee, but nowhere else.
We'll see.
It has to be in a place where it's considered classy,
I'll say there's places in Vegas where they have basically alcoholic Slurpee machines. Anyway, you get like a Jack and Coke Slurpee kind of thing. Anyway, so whatever. We'll get to that when we get to that. Right now we're in what should we call it? But maybe another year we'll circle back around and go back to Kufpe base. Right now we're in Reish Ayin Aleph. Okay. It's an interesting sugya. All right. Then next. Okay, so then we said, what are we talking about? Person who's home. But in the shul, it's a little different. So in the Kuntrus Achron, this is the note Vav, the Alter Rebbe refers to the source being the Magen Avraham, 271.25. The Magen Avraham uses an abbreviation for the term Beis HaKnesses. The Alter Rebbe states that this is Magen Avraham's intent and not Birchas HaMazon, as stated in the Be'er Hetiv. He's saying, no, we're talking, because basically Magen Avraham says, remember the Varamurim, Yachid bebeisei, Aval bebeis hey. So the Be'er Hetiv says by your own, but by benching it's different. The Alter Rebbe says, no. What the Magen Avraham is saying is by shul, it's different. The Alter Rebbe substantiates this understanding by referring to the Magen Avraham in Kuf Pei Beis. We were just talking about that about Chamar Medina, where the Magen Avraham, it appears he gives Kiddush precedence over benching. So some later printings of the Be'er Hetiv actually corrected the text as suggested by the Alter Rebbe, or alternatively to Beis HaMidrash, house of study. But either way, not benching. So in shul it's different, and it's just interesting to note. And I think because culturally back then we're talking about, especially like Nusach Ashkenaz, where it's mamish Friday night, where it's in davening. But I think back then people didn't rely on the kiddush made in shul. Everyone still went home and made kiddush. Nowadays on Shabbos day, a lot of people, that's where they hear their kiddush.
Exactly, that's their kiddush.
They might go to other meals. Or very often, couples sometimes will even split up. I'm going to go to that share. I'll go visit this person. You go visit that person. I'll go take a nap. People do different things.
And then you come home. And you come home. Do you need kiddush? No, I heard already in shul.
I already heard exactly. But what's interesting is Havdalah is still, like we finished off, that Havdalah is still relied upon. As I might not have enough wine or whatever. I don't have the stuff to do Havdalah at home. I'm hearing Havdalah in Shul. For example, there's somebody I know who recent weeks, somebody who's he's staying near me. He comes to my house to hear Havdalah. Like, sure, he has wine or whatever. He could go do Havdalah by himself, but it's just like he doesn't have the stuff all together like a Havdalah kit. He knows I'm making Havdalah. I have my stuff together. And what's interesting is that, and he does that because today, it's actually, there's a lot of shuls that don't do Havdalah because they're so reliant on the fact that people go home and make Havdalah. But it's actually something that bothers me a little bit.
It's become almost reversed from what it was then.
Yeah.
But then Kiddush, you're assuming you're going to a house.
Yeah.
Whereas
But Lubavitch Center,
yeah.
B'nai Emunah, neither they don't do Havdalah. Lubavitch Center will they have the Living Torah video, but they don't do Havdalah. And I don't know. It kind of bothers me because I feel like there still should be, and I still feel that there are still people who come there who might not have Havdalah stuff at home. I think that's one of my things in the suggestion box is that there should be a Havdalah made in the shul. And yeah,
they used to make Havdalah at Lubavitch Center.
They used to. That's right. Didn't Mayor Langer do it?
Oh, this is even after Mayor Langer.
Yeah,
even after.
But I'm just saying. I remember when Mayor Langer.
I don't know if Mayor Langer. He may have, but even after my father passed, even in to 2010 and 11. That best of my memory, they were still making Havdalah. I think so.
Yeah.
So that would be something interesting.
I'm really surprised to hear.
And maybe it's because it's true. Maybe I mean, look, not only that, even if there's one or two people in the shul there,
right?
That don't have that aren't going to go and have Havdalah after.
Yeah, it's worth it. Like I'm saying, and it's not like. If everyone was married with their wife waiting at home, so there's nobody to make Havdalah, fine. But I'm sure there's at least one like single person who davens Ma'ariv who could make the Havdalah. Like it's not
right.
So,
I'm really surprised they don't make Havdalah at Lubavitch Center.
I wonder if it's something that happened like kind of naturally, kind of thing, where there was the guy who used to do it, wasn't there one week, so it didn't happen. But then no one protested, no one said anything, so they're like, okay, I guess this isn't. It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If no one's asking for something, then people aren't going to take time out of their already busy schedule to do something extra. They feel it's extra. I'm saying is I don't feel it's extra because there are people who just because no one asked doesn't mean there aren't people who need.
Whatever.
People who don't know how to ask.
It's probably that Markel guy's fault.
It all comes back to this Rabbi Markel.
I remember when they used to say
Markel guy's fault they don't do it.
Wait a minute. I remember when they used to say Yechi 3 times before every Aliyah.
Well, that's a different Siman. So
I know.
That's probably why they don't do Havdalah anymore. It's probably why they didn't do Havdalah anymore.
Just had to say that.
First goes Yechi, then Havdalah. See, it's a very slippery
I'm telling
slope.
you. Well, that was the problem. First they the first problem was they lost Yechi. Once they lost that.
Don't even get me started on
I'm
that.
surprised they even daven anymore.
You're right.
Okay. All right, Chav Beis.
Chav Beis. There are 3 people who they inherit. They are inheritors. Is that I'm not sure. It's like mortgagor and mortgagee. I'm not sure if I'm saying the right one. But who will inherit the world to come. One of them is the person who leaves wine from Kiddush for Havdalah. The Hainosh yesh le'ma'at yain, that he has meaning that he has a little bit of wine. And he holds back from his drinking. I assume it means that meaning beyond what he has to drink. He drinks only the amount that's required. And saves it for Havdalah. And some say the Hainu, and some say no. What this means is Shemekadish Balayla al Kes Gadol, that he makes Kiddush at the night on a big cup, on a large cup. That it will remain enough after drinking the shear that you're required to, that you'll still have enough for Kiddush and Havdalah. And then he basically fills the cup and just pours a little bit to fix the because you drank from it already. So to fix its pigima, like is explained above. And during the meal, he drinks other wine, but not that wine that was from Kiddush. And it is good to do this, to act in this way.
All right. Notes. So to leave wine over, to refrain from drinking wine. So the Alter Rebbe's the Alter Rebbe's intent appears to be that although one makes Kiddush over wine, he should refrain, should hold back from drinking too much wine to ensure that he will have wine for Havdalah. There are, however, some who interpret his statement as meaning that one should refrain from making Kiddush over wine and make it over Challah instead, so that he'll have wine for Havdalah. But yeah, I don't really understand that, because I think he's already moved on from that. He's talking about the Chatchila.
He's not talking about. He's not talking about like that you don't have enough wine and you have to split it. He's talking about in general, a separate new thing. That's obvious. It's a good thing to do.
I don't understand what that is, but anyway, but that's what the note says. So and that's it. All right.
Okay. What's interesting is he said with Tevlina again, and it's good to conduct oneself like what? In which manner? The first way or the second way?
I don't really. Well, that's another thing.
I mean, I guess the second way could include the first way, because if you're making the first one,
separate. Make sure you leave some over, and you know what? If you want to be careful to do so, make kiddush out of a larger kais, so that way you're making sure to always leave some over.
Because he brings it as a yeshemrim. He brings it as a different opinion. He brings it as one opinion is that it means that you leave over from the kiddush of the day for Havdalah.
Yeah.
And the other one says, no, it's that at night you have a big cup and you leave over for both. So, but I mean, technically you could really fulfill both of those, because if you have the big cup and then and then you pour that, then you'll leave over.
Well, no, I mean, if there's some Indian to only drink a little bit of wine, like some sort of iskafia, if you're drinking out of a big cup, you're not drinking a little bit of wine.
That wine, because he specifically says that if he wants, he can drink more during the meal, but just not from that cup.
I understand, but I'm talking about during the making of the kiddush. What's the difference between the Yeshayim and the first one? The first one is that you hold yourself back from drinking too much wine.
No.
You only have it's literally the words. Yes, like yayin. You only have a little bit of wine.
Of the kiddush wine. He's not talking about other wine that you're going to drink.
I understand. I'm talking about kiddush. I'm not talking about during the suda.
So you should.
I'm saying that's the difference between the two.
So
the first one, the kiddush wine, you only drink a little bit. The second one, you drink a lot.
Yeah, the first one he's saying don't finish the whole cup. That's all he's saying in the first one. The second one he's saying at night that it's enough for the day and Havdalah. The first one, it's just you're leaving enough for Havdalah. You're not leaving over. And I'm not sure if the truth is which kiddush he's talking about.
Oh, that's another difference. Right. Kiddush yain as well. And you just keep adding wine to make an aphagum. Interesting.
Yeah.
But the first one is that you make kiddush and you just leave some directly for Havdalah. That's interesting.
Right. And by the way, he might be talking about two whole different situations, because in the first situation, he says that this is meaning a person who only has a little bit of wine and holds back and saves it for Havdalah. And the second one, clearly he's talking about you have plenty of wine, because if you want more, to drink from a different thing. So it could be.
So that's what I don't understand why it's a yeshayim.
Well, it's very simple, because they're not talking about the same situation. They're talking about how do you translate shleishim minochle ilam haba ve'echad me'am hamishar yain mikiddush Havdalah. One of the people who is from those who inherit Olam Haba is somebody who leaves over from Kiddush Havdalah. What does that mean? What are they referring to? So the first Yeshayim says it's referring to a case where you have a little bit of wine and you only drink enough, so you leave over for Havdalah. And the second Yeshayim says no, it's talking about.
Okay, so now I understand what that note is. I understand what the note is better. Okay, meaning only has a little bit of...
is saying no, we're talking about a lechatchila case that you lechatchila make on a big cup, and then so that from the same cup you're going to make also the kiddush in the day and also the kiddush for Havdalah, and you'll just fill the pagima. You'll add a little bit so it's not pagum. And if you want to drink more wine, you have plenty of wine, no problem. You'll drink from, but don't drink it from that cup. so that that cup will remain for those things.
I guess I'm still a little tired. Yeah, it took me. All right, Yeshikach, thank you.
That seems to be his yeah.
Okay, Chav Kim.
Pav Gimel. After one makes kiddush on a cup, he should then wash his hands for a meal, right? Thrice on the right and then thrice on the left. Or alternatively, if your left is my right, then you do it on your right, which is my left, which is your left, your left, which is your right.
Well, I thought it's 3 times on the right and 3 times.
Thrice.
Not twice.
Right,
3 times.
right. No, not twice. I said
Thrice.
I said thrice.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Thrice. As in the food.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So wait 1 second. How do I put this off here? There we go. Go to the messages. We're in a shir now. So you wash your hands 3 times on the right and 3 times on the left. Or if you're a lefty, you do the other way around. Because your right, your left is everybody else's right, or something like that. And you make the bracha asher kiddushanu v'mitzvesa v'tzivanu al nitilas yodayim. That's the bracha that you make. Okay, and im shachav v'natal yodayim kiddush. If you forgot and you washed your hands before kiddush, lo yekadish al ala yain el ala pas. You should not make kiddush on wine, but rather you should make kiddush on bread. Why? Because now I think, this is the part that we're talking about, that it seems like the Alter Rebbe leans into, or it's one of the parts that he seems to lean into the reason that you cover the bread is because of the busha, because of the order of the brachas here. Because now that you've washed hands, you've already revealed your that you desire bread more than wine. Actually, in this case, this is not one of them. This, because here he's actually talking about what you preferred rather than to say the brachas. But because you already washed your hands, so you're showing that you desire bread, that you're hungry for bread. Why did you forget kiddush? Because you went to wash your hands because you were rushing to eat bread. So it shows you want bread. And you're supposed to make v'tzadach kaddish ala chaviv. You're supposed to make kiddush on that which is more desirable. Even though
Just a quick question, call it just to be a stickler. It's al natilas yodoyim with a comma. It's not a patach.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, and
Show what you want more.
okay,
Yes,
by
the way, if you ever want to eat, if you want me to read, I don't have to just read the notes.
No.
Read the Shulchan Aruch if you want, whatever you want.
It's my boba copy.
Oh, nice. You're boba tea. Okay, whatever. I'm saying either way. If you ever want me to read, feel free.
And there are those that argue with this and say that even in the first place you can wash, not just that if you forgot and washed your hands, you can still make kiddush, but in the first place you can go and wash your hands before kiddush. And the kiddush is not an interruption between the washing of hands and the bread and the suda. Why? Because in order to eat the bread, you have to make kiddush first. And therefore, the kiddush is for the needs, for the sake of the meal. And the main halacha is like the second svara, like the second opinion, meaning that even in the first place you can wash before kiddush. And so too is the simple minhag in these countries. The Vad Milel Pesach, besides for the night of Pesach, besides for by the Seder, Kameshis Bar Siman Taf Ein Gimel, like explained in 173. But still, somebody that, like first opinion, and not to wash until after Kiddush, he is doing good. He's being a good boy. And we do not hold him back from the fact that he's going over, that he's not doing it like this minhag. That's the common minhag of washing before. Because he can say that he's following a course that everybody agrees with. Meaning even those even those who pass that you're allowed to, even they would hold that if you washed after Kiddush, it's fine.
Right.
But on the other hand, according to the first opinion, washing before is not fine. So therefore, this is really the best. Even though the minhag has become to wash before, it's better to do it the other way around and make Kiddush first and then wash. So that way you're satisfying both opinions. According to everybody, also limzeg hakes bechamin. So according to everybody, if
he did wash his hand before Kiddush,
he should not mix. He should not like dilute the Kiddush cup with hot water. Like, let's say, I guess back then they like cold drinks wasn't really a thing. Now in the age of refrigeration and ice makers and things, cold drinks have become like everybody wants everything cold. Back then, back then,
maybe it's the winter time. He wants a hot drink, no?
Whatever it is, but usually you wouldn't find that mixing a hot water into wine would be a very odd one to see. I mean, unless you're British, maybe if you drink warm beer, you drink warm. I don't know. I'm not sure how
warm wine. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how Britishness works. Okay, and in either case, this you cannot do after you washed your hands. I'm assuming he's doing it, meaning like
we said before.
Like you're doing it before Kiddush. In other words, you want to make it warm for Kiddush.
For those that says al natilas yadayim before Kiddush, right? So watch al natilas yadayim, and then you're about to make Kiddush, and he's mixing the wine with hot water for his Kiddush. So
you can't do
that.
Meaning even the ones who say generally you're allowed to make Kiddush, but you can't do that thing with the cup. It is an art form essentially. This mixing of hot water and wine that they used to do is an exacting thing.
Takes focus.
Yeah, it's an exacting thing. Takes exactness, and that you shouldn't put too much into little. So this certainly is you're removing your mind from it, because you're doing something that requires concentration. And in the first place, you should even be careful. Not just about something like this, but even pouring from the how do you say pitcher, the jug into the cup. It should also be before Netilas Yadayim, because you shouldn't have the issue of maybe pouring into the cup of wine is a hefsek, which is why you can see perhaps why the opinion is a good thing. Those who follow the first opinion is a good thing, because if you follow the second opinion, even though that's the minhag in a lot of those countries, at least it was at that time, now you get into all these things of like you have to be very careful not to make a hefsek. Whereas if you just make Kiddush and then you wash, you're not coming into all these problems of making a hefsek. Notes. Oh, wait, yeah.
So we start off saying you should make Kiddush, then you wash your hands until Netilas Yadayim. Now, if you forgot and washed your hands before saying Kiddush, the fact Alter Rebbe doesn't mention the recitation of the bracha of al Netilas Yadayim, just washed. He didn't say the bracha yet. It appears he would advise following this approach, even if the bracha was not yet recited. The fact that the person washed to partake of bread indicates he desired to partake of it, and that desire alone is sufficient to make it the preferred option for Kiddush. Leket tziyunim v'ha'aretz. So even if the guy didn't make a bracha yet, he's in.
In other words, why? Just because he already displayed intent.
I washed with the intent. I'm washing for Amitzi.
Right. I mean, he's washing for bread. It's clear. Right.
Yeah. So now there's a question concerning the proper version of the text, actually, with regards to when the Alter Rebbe says, "Ve'ikr kasfara ha'achreina." Fundamentally, the halacha follows the latter approach. In our translation, the understanding of Kuntres HaShulchan, which is supported by Likutei Sichos, volume 21, page 385, which is the Ve'ikr Kasfara, that it's Ha'achreina. That's how we translate. Which is why in many editions the word Achreina is in brackets for that reason. Anyway, so and we say, as we'll common custom in these countries this way, except for the night of Pesach, as we explained in 473. So in that source, the Alter Rebbe states that since an extended interruption is made between Kiddush and the partaking of the matzah, or one recites the entire first part of the Haggadah, right? So it's necessary to then wash your hands again before doing it. So that's why you have rachza and then mitzi matzah. Okay, and then we said, yeah, even though the minhag locally is to wash first before kiddush, but definitely someone who doesn't wash till after kiddush that's a good way to do it. You shouldn't admonish him because hey, he's following everybody this way. Actually, everyone's happy, and this is actually the Lubavitch custom. Now, in addition to the halachic reasons for doing so, like Rebbe Mendel pointed out so beautifully, there are mystic reasons as well as stated in the works of the Arizal students. To wash after kiddush, they shouldn't add hot water. Yeah, okay, and that's it.
Chav Dalit. Chav Dalis.
Elef.
Chav Dalis.
Chav Dalef.
Tzadi and Dalis. Hamakadesh tzarich sheyitayim me'akleis kimolei lugmov. One who makes kiddush, he must taste from the cup, like the filling of literally meaning the filling of his cheeks. Lugmov mamish, and not filling his cheeks literally. Elakol sheilu misalklit tzad echad befiv veiram meloy lugmov. But enough that if you would move it in the side of your mouth, it would look like you're a full cheek. How much is this? This is the majority of a revi'is in an average person. That's how much it would come out to. But somebody bigger than that, than an average person, who has bigger than usual cheeks, right? Would have a bigger malay lugmav because it goes according to your cheek. When we call makim in tzarich yesim revi'is, however, it maxes out, meaning that even a guy who has cheeks that can fit a gallon each, he does not have to drink a gallon, but rather you don't need more. You never need more than a revi'is. A revi'is is the maximum amount that you need, even with very large cheeks. So this will come as a piece of good news for all the large cheeked people out there. That they will know they only have to drink a revi'is and not the mamish their full cheek.
Big Gedali
Gumber, even though it's still not like a full cheek for him.
So Big Gedali Gumber didn't have to make kiddush on a barrel.
No, only a revi'is.
Regular kiddush cup.
This revi'is, yeah. All he had to drink was a revi'is.
Okay, so
which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny in a way, being that the whole mindset behind it, the reason you have to drink lugmav, is because that's the amount that's considered having pleasure, taking pleasure in the drink. That's what's called a pleasurable drink. So the guy who's drinking a revi'is and he has giant cheeks, but he's receiving. So maybe everybody.
Yeah, but if you wanted to get to Hana itself, we were talking about wine. That is not a pleasurable way to drink wine. Is by the gulpful. It's
no,
sip.
just
appreciate the wine.
Which no, but it's not just with wine.
Any wine
with any drink. With any drink,
stuff with maybe with.
And it comes from
any drink,
it comes from something something in the Beis Hamikdash or something.
I'm saying, but I think that's more with the rest of food, because actually with drinks, going slower, having sips is the more tasty way to, whether it's scotch or wine or anything.
Oh yeah,
it's an interesting sugya. It's an interesting sugya. But anyway, it says for an average person, this is the greater portion of revi'is. Now, there's a note on that. If a person does not drink this amount, he does not fulfill his obligation for kiddush from the Shulchan, meaning he has to make kiddush again. As an initial preference, one should drink this amount at one time. At the very least, he should drink it in the amount of time referred to as kedei achilas piras, which in this context is 4 minutes. And according to some opinions, in the amount of time it takes to drink revi'is. We see in Siman 472, Sif 20. Now, there are Chassidim who, supporting their words with the narrative in Sefer HaSichos, Tuf Reish Tzadik Zayin, 5697, page 193, and page 208 in the new edition, they speak of drinking the majority of the cup of wine, i.e., each person according to the goblet he uses, meaning you should drink Roiv Kais, which, as far as I understand, is the universal Lubavitch minhag, is to drink more than half of whatever.
Which is interesting, by the way, because if you notice, that was not brought up in when we were doing inside the Mechaber with Mishnah Brewer. It's not brought up.
It's not brought over.
This is the first time that we've brought this up here. It's not even in the Alter Rebbe's. Even in Alter Rebbe, it's not there either.
Right.
It's only
like later Lubavitch minhag. It's not again, Shulchan Aruch was written for the whole world, not for Lubavitch. So It's a Lubavitch minhag, and I think that's the whole thing of like even like the story of the Alter Rebbe where he ended up using like a washing cup or something. Got pretty shicker by his in-laws. They wouldn't let him, tried to not let him make kiddush. It was the whole story. You know what I'm talking
So
about?
he used like
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And he was like kind of like a mini bucket that he used to make kiddush on. With his wife, it was the whole story. They didn't respect
but the
him.
rave case is rave case.
Yeah, it's rave case. Because otherwise you say, who cares how large this bucket was?
Right.
What damage does that do? Just drink Ravius out of it and you're done. No, you got to drink rave case, and that's rave case.
Yeah.
And I'll say very quickly because I have a lot to cover, but I had my own story like that, which when I was in yeshiva in LA in Zal, there was a Holocaust survivor, Reb Meyer Nuremberg, all of a shalom, who was in Auschwitz, and he lived 2 blocks from yeshiva in Detroit, down the block from Rabbi Shapiro's house. And after Pesach, and he used to sit in the back of the shul where I sat. So every Shabbos he would sit near me. We got somewhat friendly, and then after Pesach he didn't come. I came back from Ben Azmanim. He wasn't in yeshiva, and someone said he had fallen and hurt his hip, so he couldn't walk to shul anymore. So I went to his house after davening, and to say hello to him. Now I had just finished davening. I went straight to his house because back then I used to daven a little bit longer and whatever. So I went straight to his house on my way to Rabbi Shapiro's house, and I would make kiddush Rabbi Shapiro's house late, And I stopped at his house, and he's sitting there, and he's kind of sad and alone. His wife had passed away like 2 years before, so he's still very depressed about it. And so I'm sitting with him, and I'm like, Meyer, you should make Shabbos. Do you make kiddush? He said, no. He's like, I can't do it on my own. I said, I'll make kiddush for you then. You have wine? He says, I think I have one wine. So basically, he had one giant bottle, like a jumbo bottle of Manischewitz from one of his kids' bar mitzvahs, like 20 years before. And the only cup he had, his kitchen was not a kosher kitchen. And I didn't feel, even though it's cold, whatever, making with wine and a treif cup, he had one cup that wouldn't have been treifed up, which was this large Eliyahu Hanavi goblet.
Right, it was largely decorational. It was
Yeah. So here I am, a Lubavitcher Bacher, going, you got to drink Rav Kais when you make Kiddush. And his kitchen was not a kosher kitchen. So that meant he also did not have any Mezainis, Makim Suda that I would have eat, definitely a Pas Yisrael or whatever. So I basically would drink Rav Kais in this goblet, just more than half, and then drink another Ravius. And my head would be spinning. I'd sit down in the chair, like trying to recover until I could stand up and walk down the block. In the meantime, he would just be unloading all these stories of his whole life, these incredible stories of how he survived, and he was tortured by Mengele, injected with typhoid. He jumped off the bleachers when he was sick, and all these stories, running away from bombs being dropped over him. And I don't remember half the stories because my head was spinning. I was shikker on again, not just any wine, but Manischewitz, an old bottle of Manischewitz.
20 years.
That high sugar content, first of all, yeah, probably fermented more than it did originally.
Yeah.
But plus just stam, the sugar makes the alcohol go straight to my brain. And I have to be honest, first of all, back then, I don't really have an appetite in the morning. So now, even before davening, I try to have something to give myself energy for davening, but to eat a lot, mezainis especially, is difficult because I just don't have the appetite. And back then, I barely ate anything, and I would daven for a long time. So by then, I was quite hungry. So on a totally empty stomach, having all this wine, I would be spinning. And it happened a few Shabbosim in a row, and I'd stumble into Rabbi Shapiro's house, and Rabbi Shapiro would be like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "It's good to make kiddush for him, but you gotta." So I kept forgetting basically Friday afternoon to bring over to his house. Yeah, and so 3 Shabbosim in a row until I finally was able to make time to drop something at his house during the week, and then I was able to.
Did you remember the stories after that?
I don't, even to this day. I remember pieces, but I don't remember the full. He told me, I know he told me more that I just could not. And then he passed away that summer. Dal Tammuz.
Yeah.
Anyway, so very interesting rave case. Anyway,
yeah, and actually that is something to be careful of with
Okay.
rave case because of that aspect of Chabad Minhag, it's become so ingrained that some people don't realize that you have to also drink a revius because rave case. But if your cup in the first place is earlier, yeah, but if you're not even the revius Makim Suda. I'm talking about if the Malay Lugmav, ideally being that what's in other words, and Mishnah Berurah discussed this also, is really ideally that therefore because who's to say what an average cheek is. And maybe
You're saying if you have a
and
small
maybe,
cup.
and maybe in the times of the Gemara they had different sized cheeks. I don't know, but
You're saying on the opposite. You're saying if you have a small cup,
so I'm
then
saying
the guy might not
so you
drink
have to
Revius in the
drink
first
it. So
place.
ideally, even though the Mishnah Berurah rules in the end that if you're not able to drink a Revius and you drink just the full of your cheek, it's fine.
Yeah.
But ideally, you're supposed to drink a Revius, really, because that's the maximum amount. Even though most of a Revius is for an average cheek, you don't know what an average cheek is.
Yeah, I understand.
So
But what do you say?
So now you have a cup that's barely a Revius. Reiv Kais is ideally is not enough. Make sure you drink a Revius. So if you have a cup that say, let's say, well, you go by the lower shear, say 2.9,
And again,
and you have a 3.5 cup, 3.5 ounce cup. Make sure you drink 3 ounces of it. You know.
And we've mentioned in the past, again, but minhag halacha takes place is prioritized over minhag.
Right, and that's even more important than Leib Kais.
Revius is halacha.
Right. So on the one hand, if you have the a little cup and you drank Reiv Kais, but you didn't drink Malay Lugmav, you got a problem.
Right.
On the other hand, if you have a giant cup, and minhag Chabad is we drink Reiv Kais, but if you drank a Revius and you didn't drink Reiv Kais, you were still okay. So that's why I just want to bring that up because I've noticed the thing that I noticed something people are doing and it really bothers me. People don't always realize this thing. In other words, they know the minhag but not the halacha sometimes. So it's important that when you're drinking a Reiv Kais, it has to be not only Reiv Kais, but make sure that ideally you are drinking a Revius as well. Continue.
Coffee.
If the person making kiddush did not drink, and one of the meal goers, one of the recliners, the diners, had the wine instead. If this other guy drank milei lugmav, then yatsu kulam midei chavasim. Then they all fulfilled their obligation. Meaning, even if the guy making kiddush did not drink,
didn't drink anything.
But one of the people, and it's important to note it's one. We're talking one of the people who heard kiddush with him and was yaitzer from his kiddush. It can't just be a random guy who's not being yaitzer in his kiddush and happens to be in the room. We're talking about in the case that somebody who was yaitzer the kiddush with him drank a full malay lugmav. Right, ideally a Revius. They all fulfilled their obligation. Everybody who heard this kiddush, it was a good kiddush, which meaning the other way around. If he didn't drink Malay Lugmav and none of the other people drank Malay Lugmav, it's not a good kiddush. Everybody has to hear kiddush again, including the guy who made kiddush. Right. If nobody drank from it. However, the two people do not combine into Malay Lugma, meaning one other person has to by himself drink the required amount, not that between all the people who heard Kiddush they drink that amount combined. Because one of them has to have pleasure from the drinking of the cup of blessing. And as we know, the whole reason for Malay Lugmav is that is the amount. Under that amount, it is not considered to have had pleasure from the drinking. Less than that, it's not called drinking of hana, not called pleasurable drinking. So it's interesting because the Alter Rebbe in the Mechaber it brings two opinions, because there is an opinion that you can combine several people. But as we see here, the Alter Rebbe does not hold by that. The Alter Rebbe holds by the opinion that you cannot combine people into Malay Lugmav. Still, it is a mitzvah. The best way of doing the mitzvah is that everybody should taste from everybody should drink wine after Kiddush. Everybody was Yetzer. But it doesn't have to be that everybody drinks the shear, drinks some lugmav. You don't have to have that everybody drink a revius, but just that everybody tastes some. somebody who has a little bit of wine, it's better that one person drinks the whole shir, and nobody else tastes, but rather you leave the rest for tomorrow for Kiddush or for Havdalah, based on the order that was set in the above seifim of when you leave what for what. So if you don't have enough wine that everybody should have, and you're also leaving over, better to leave over than that everybody should taste. Why? Because the most important thing to be yaitze is just that ideally the guy making kiddush, or at least somebody else who is yaitze from the kiddush, has milei lugma. This that everybody should taste a little, that's just mitzvah min hamuvchar. It's the optimum way of doing this mitzvah. V'ha'ga'ainim seivrim, and the ga'ainim hold shem leitam mekadosh atzmei kin lugma v'yatza. However, even though, like you said before, if one of the other people had to drink his yaitza, and he drank, as long as he drank shir, the ga'ainim held that if the guy who made kiddush himself did not drink the shir lo yatza, then he is not. Then he did not fulfill his obligation, and obviously neither did anybody else who heard from his kiddush. Even if every single other person who heard your kiddush has the right shir, the kiddush is no good at kiddush on because the person making kiddush has to have lugmav. So now it would seem that Alter Rebbe does not, obviously being that he brings the other halacha first also. So the Alter Rebbe doesn't hold ledina, that according to the bare law that we go by this, according to the bare law, the Alter Rebbe holds if somebody else drank it, then as long as one person by himself drank shir, it's fine. However, in the first place, we should be careful by what the Ga'anim held, and the person making kiddush should drink milay lugmav. Now, when this becomes pertinent to where there's a nafkamina here, is what if you have somebody who can make kiddush, and you have another person who can't make kiddush, but you also have one person who's able to drink a revius of wine, and you have another person who's not able to drink a revius of wine. You have a very old man who can make kiddush, but his stomach his face bothers him, and this and that and the other, and he can't drink a full. He can taste a little tiny bit. He can't drink the shir. He just can't do it. Right. So in this case, you could say that you can rely maybe on what the Alter Rebbe says, because really the main opinion is that somebody else can drink the lugmav, even though it's fitting to hold by what the Ga'anim said, and really you should do that. But in a case where there's a necessity, so it's good to know that according to the Ber Halacha, you can rely on this thing of somebody else having the milay lugam. When do we say this thing? By kiddush. But by Havdalah and all other kinds of things that need a cup, benching, bris, sheva brachas, whatever else, all these other things that need a cup. Hakel meidim haga'ainim shafil achila dai b'timas echad masubin lugmav. In those cases, even the ga'ainim would agree that if somebody, as long as somebody has the cheek full, or ideally the whole revius, then you're okay, and you don't necessarily have to have the same person drinking wine. Yeah. What?
Yeah, I feel even
in the first place. Yeah, not just like in a like before we were saying, even by kiddush, when I was saying like if you have a person who's sick and he can't drink the whole thing, and somebody else needs to drink them lugmav. That's even by kiddush. By the other things, even in the first place, you can have it done that way, even without that kind of situation, etc.
All right. Some notes. I think there was one or two. Yeah, basically for Shasiya Shalana, they add this note that it's you said apparently in the above source we quoted with regards to Hana, it says over there that one must drink an amount sufficient to settle his mind. That's what we're talking about of Hana. Settles the mind, and that is a cheekful. It's like maybe it's like meaning with regards to being like satiated. Because I know a lot of shiurim with regards to saying an after bracha to eat enough that it's somewhat like filling. Yeah. I guess with regards to drinking, settling the mind is a it's And Bechalal, with regards
maybe it means, like, for example, like when you're thirsty, right? The
It stops
amount
you
of
from being,
liquid that would satisfy you
settle
would
the
be
mind.
would be Revi'is. It's not type
I'm
of-
so thirsty. I'm so thirsty. Okay, just enough to
right here.
settle
Have
the
a
mind.
Revi'is. Okay, right.
Right, there you go. So then Bechlal, with regards to someone who can't drink the wine, there's a note that says, we'll see in the next Siman, Reish Ayin Beis, Sif Yud Beis. Excuse me. And then what are we talking about? Like Kiddush. So the Alter Rebbe's wording implies that this also includes the Kiddush of the day meal, meaning all Kiddushes. And you should see the Pri Megadim Nifshah says on that for more details. And that's it.
I guess
All
there's
right,
there's some opinions that dafka by Kiddush of night,
Laila.
which is more
Yeah.
right, which is a bigger Kiddush. Even though the one by the
The
day we
Alter
call
Rebbe
Kiddush
seems to
Rabbi,
say-
right? Isn't it funny we call Kiddush Rabbi the one by the day?
Yeah, maybe we say that in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way, calling it that because it's Dirabanan, because it's not, I don't know.
Maybe.
One other thing
What was it?
One other thing I was going to say, you keep talking about the Be'er Halacha. I've heard of the Be'er Hativ and the Be'er. What's this Be'er Halacha? No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. The Be'er Halacha. Bare bones.
Bear
Okay.
halacha. No, not to be confused with the Be'er halacha. No, but because
The
there is
Be'ur.
by the way, there is a Be'er halacha.
Right. There is a
which is
Be'ur
the Mishnah Brura.
Right.
It's
but
also the Chafetz Chaim, but he has two perushim. He has the Mishnah Brura, and then he has the Be'er halacha, which I guess goes into more explanation generally than like it adds things or whatever. He didn't put he felt in Mishnah Brura weren't part of the Be'er halacha. So
part of the bare bones.
So he put that in the
bare
Be'er halacha.
necessities.
Yeah. Okay. So so that's Nachavav.
Yep. Chavav.
Kiddush ala case for Kiddush tam hifsik b'dibur chazer mavari b'gaf and ein tzarich lachzil kaddish. If you made Kiddush on a cup, and before you tasted from the wine, you spoke. You go back and you have to say Beir Pri Hagafen again, because now you made a hefsek, you made an interruption between your Hagafen and your drinking. But you do not have to say the Kiddush bracha again, because the Kiddush in and of itself doesn't require even though you do have to have the cup, but the requirement is to make Kiddush on the cup. And you made Kiddush on the cup. So you were yaitz the Kiddush. So therefore you would not make the Kiddush again, but you would have to make a Hagafen again. By the way, just FYI, maybe it'll be in the notes here also. But the Mishnah Brura says that if you interrupted, if I recall right, don't quote me on this. I believe that he says that the nature of the interruption depends. If the interruption was something that has to do with Kiddush, then you don't.
Yeah, unless the interruption is necessary. From
okay, fine, good. All right.
Siman
I thought
167.
I saw that, but I don't have the Mishnah right here in front of me. So, but I seem to remember that.
Whatever, we'll get into the notes.
Yeah, but if he removed his concentration from the drinking of this cup, or he left this room, went to a different room, even though he returns to his place, now he has to make Kiddush again. And his first Kiddush is no good. Being that clearly he removed his intention from the tasting of the cup, between making Kiddush and tasting the cup, or the fact that he uprooted himself from one room to another. Notes.
Now, he says, Beir Pri Hagafen again before drinking. So we see in Siman 167, Sif 9, which explains that a new bracha is warranted unless the interruption is necessary in order to partake of said wine. Even in such an instance, the initial preference is to drink before speaking. The same rules apply to another person who listens to the recitation of Kiddush. If he speaks before partaking of the wine, he must recite the blessing Beir Pri Hagafen again. Now it says he doesn't have to say the whole kiddush again, just the Beir Gafen, because he said kiddush over a cup of wine that he drinks in the place of his meal, so he fulfills his obligation. Kafachayim, 271.95. Now if he basically diverted his attention from the cup, this ruling also applies if he tasted the wine but made an interruption before drinking a cheekful.
Right, because he's not yaitza until he's had the cheekful, like we said before.
So let's say, he starts laughing as he starts drinking for some reason. Yeah, if he didn't get a cheekful down, he's got to just keep drinking. Don't stop until you get that cheekful down.
Yeah.
Maybe the mashka is really strong or something.
He'll
take a sip and go, "Whoa, this stuff is strong."
Right,
no,
right. Take a sip. Shut up.
Get the cheekful.
Ideally,
take your time. Take your time. 4 minutes.
Focusing on the cup so you don't lose your.
Yeah, kedei achilas pras. Take your time, sip it if you need to, but get that cheekful down first. Then you can stop and go, "Wow, that's Zex or 9 or something else."
Right, then you can say, "I was going to say before, wow, is that some hot stuff?"
Right. Now, if you left the room, if he left the room, but can still see his initial place, it's not considered a hefsek by the Shulchan, which also counts with regards to washing for amaitzi. You want to wash where you can see your place, etc. All those things. It's not a hefsek going between rooms like that. Now, in the Kuchas Acharon, it says he went to another room, Kuchas Acharon, which is the Zion, the big Zion that's in there. The Alter Rebbe emphasizes that either of the two, whether diverting one's attention or leaving the room, that's enough to need a new bracha. It's not both. It's either or. That's why there's the
right. Either in its own right would be
Right. Yeah. All right, Chav Zayin.
Chav Zayin. Speaking of laughing during kiddush, v'cheinim nishbach keish kiddush alav, and so too if the cup of wine spilled, he spilled the cup of wine that he made kiddush on it. Yaviu lekis acher. They should bring him another.
They make a Weinstein.
Weinstein, yeah. Vivarich olav beir gafen, and he should make and he needs to make a gafen on it. But only only if he specifically, because now generally speaking, when we make, not only that, according to our minhag, how we do it, we actually dafka have in mind more wine because we drink another revius of wine after to avoid having to make a bracha achrona and after bracha on the wine. So by us mistama, this wouldn't apply because you had in mind other wine. But if he did not have other in mind to drink other wine, like let's say this is the only wine you have. Let's say there is no other wine. That's that wine. And now they have to go bring you more wine from somewhere else. They have to go to Rabbi Itkin's house next door and bring you more wine because you made the thing and your thing spilled. But you did not have in mind the wine at Rabbi Itkin's house. And therefore you would have to make a Beir Gafen now on that. However, but just like before, when he spoke in between, he would not have to make another kiddush unless he did one of those two things, like we mentioned before, of removing his intent, right, or moving into another room. If he is making kiddush over beer in the daytime, because at the nighttime you can't, according to everybody. And the cup spills over. Since some people, by the way, I'm assuming he's not talking about like a 4.5% Budweiser beer. He's talking about like a good 19% Ukrainian obolon or something like that. Because he says that since some people, it's like it makes them queasy.
They're disgusted.
Disgusted to drink beer in the morning.
Each into their own.
These were not average Americans we were talking about. So yesh.
The Magen Avram. You see Magen Avram Sifkat and Chafei.
Yesh the Hakil. So you can be lenient. He does not need to bring another cup. To make a bracha on it. Because some say that he can that the hametzi that he will make, he can also be mitzi it. So at that point, just make especially being that the whole reason. He's it's hard for him to drink what's it called. So therefore, do
we have time for the notes or
yeah? I don't see anybody on. We can keep going until
if there's more wine on the table.
We go.
Okay, so if there's more wine on the table, you should pour another cup and drink it. In such an instance, there is no need to say a second bracha. It's moreover, if he's saying kiddush for others and wine was already poured for them, they partake of it. He's not required to say a second bracha when the wine is brought to him. And it should be brought to him. If a small amount of wine remains in the cup, he should drink that wine. As such, he'll not have to say a bracha ber guffin again. Nevertheless, more wine must be brought, so he'll be able to do a cheekful by the Shulchan. Wine after drink additional wine after kiddush. If he had the intent to drink other wine, the wine brought to him is considered as covered by the first bracha. There's no need to recite the bracha ber guffin again. In the instance mentioned by the Alter Rebbe, by contrast, since he did not originally intend to drink other wine, the cup now brought to him requires its own blessing. That's why the Alter Rebbe is saying that. So there's room for leniency. There's no need to bring another cup of bracha. Afterwards, if kiddush over beer in the morning, the cup spilled. But if, however, the person wants to drink beer, if he likes beer, then another cup should be brought to him. Again, the Badei Shulchan. Now, the authorities who maintain one fulfills even by saying hamaitzi over the bread. Kunshas HaShulchan states that the text should continue even as an initial opinion, meaning even afilu chatchila hamaitzi. And then basically, as we explained in Reish Ayin Beis, we'll say the Alter Rebbe states over there, we'll see still that the preferably kiddush should be recited over wine. If wine is not easily accessible, it's permitted to recite kiddush on wine of the region, like beer. This together with bread is sufficient for a person to fulfill his obligation. All right, tomorrow.
There's other people on already. Or do I just not? Maybe my view is just set.
Yeah, a few people are on.
Oh, fine, good.
Right.
So we will stop here.
See
We will
ya.
continue
Have a
in
good day.
Mitzvah Hashem with Chaf Ches, maybe.